everyone, welcome back to Portland Life. Today we've got an interesting topic. Why buy a house in Portland, Oregon during the winter? It's a fantastic idea. Stick around as we explore the unique advantages that the rainy season brings to potential home buyers. And we are getting after it right now. If this is your first time on our channel, hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so that you can be alerted to a new video of ours when it drops about life here in Portland, Oregon.
My name is Ann Stewart. This is Erica Hagfors. We get calls, emails, and texts from folks just like you thinking about making a move to the Portland area. Doesn't matter if you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, give us a call, email, or text. All of our information is in the description below, and let us help you make a smooth move to the Portland area.
Okay, so when people think about house hunting, they don't often think about going out during the winter in the gloomy months when it's dark and rainy and cold.
Yes.
However, this is, in my opinion, the best time to buy a house, especially in our Portland, Oregon, Northwest rainy season.
It really is.
So obviously we've talked about the fact that we get a lot of rain here in Portland.
Did you know that?
Did you know that?
It rains a lot in Portland?
So that being said, our houses have to, accommodate all that rain. And I have always thought, and Ann is the same way, that when you buy during the summer, it's fantastic. Everything looks beautiful.
Yep.
However, you don't know if that roof leaks. You don't know if you get water in the crawl space. You don't know if you get water in the basement.
Or even like pooling water around the house, which is,
it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, understanding how the roadways around your house or even the yard handles water.
Mm-hmm.
And water can do so much damage that it's really great to understand what it does to this property, when you're in that shopping process. Because, we've all been there. We go look at a house during the summer and we're like, this is fantastic. And you're in heaven and you're in this little bubble. Yeah. And then you get to the winter and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this. I didn't realize I've got, a crawl space issue, or I didn't realize that the roof is leaking.
Yeah.
And there's only so much sometimes that they can do in the summer months with, even like moisture detection.
Right.
And, there may be evidence of something, but
and it's not to say that sellers shouldn't disclose.
Yes, but
if they have. But sometimes the sellers, and quite honestly, they may have felt like they've taken care of an issue by whatever measures, or that they haven't seen it, or maybe they haven't lived at the property. There's a lot of properties that that are sold that they've never lived in, or it's vacant, or it's an estate sale. And so like Erica was saying, like the beauty of buying in the winter is you get to stress test this house. And there's never a better day to have a home inspection than when it's absolutely pouring rain. It's just awful. The groundwater is super saturated, because you get to go see the house in its most pressure tested. And I will tell you, there's been so many times that we have had a home inspection when it's absolutely pouring out, gloomy, all of that, and
it reveals some very important information.
Water in the crawl space,
or
look at the pooling in the yard, or some type of leak that could be happening or whatnot. So it gives you an opportunity to see it in its worst state or pressured state, but you kind of would, it's great to see it in that state.
I find this is especially great too. I mean, if you have a larger yard or looking at acreage, to truly understand how that land is going to deal with copious amounts of rain. Yeah. We've had a lot of, I think they call them atmospheric rivers now, come through, and looking at the ground, because you may be like, oh, it's lovely and it's flat. And then you may realize, well, it's not really that it's so lovely and flat. It's actually kind of concave, and you get a lot of pooling and standing water. And depending on where your outbuildings are, if you have some, that could be a really big problem. Or maybe you realize, oh, this is fantastic. We have a slight slope and everything drains really well. And then, maybe that speaks a little bit more highly to you. But understanding.
And I'll even give myself an example. I have a yard. It's a large yard, and it has a slope to it. And we had a French drain put in many, many years ago. Well, guess what? French drains are awesome. But they also need to be redone every several years. And so there was pooling in my backyard about 3 weeks ago that was from these atmospheric rivers, where it was just coming down so hard. And literally, it's hard for the ground to absorb that much water when it's coming down for days on end. And we were starting to get some serious pooling in our backyard, and we hadn't seen that before. And we realized, okay, our French drain was no longer working because silt and debris can get stuck in it over years of use. So we had to have a company come out. They dug it all up. They put a new pipe in. They put new rock down. And guess what? We've had heavy rain since and haven't had a lick of drainage. And also, to be honest, it's a great time to check the crawl spaces, because I'll be honest, I walked in my crawl space the other day and I saw some standing water, so I'm gonna have to deal with that. But all because of this heavy saturation. We did have snow and ice melt recently, which is also adding and compounding this whole thing around the groundwater gets so heavy with water that the water has to find a place to go, and inevitably it comes into our crawl spaces. So what we also want to share is about 30 to 40% of our home inspections have some kind of drainage or water issue. It's not uncommon. Don't freak out when you see it. In fact, it's all about mitigating this groundwater, whether it needs a sump pump or it needs French drains or it needs gutters to be cleaned. There's all kinds of reasons, but you want to manage it, and that's what we do here in the Pacific Northwest, is we manage water.
And that's exactly it. It's figuring out how best to protect your house for the water load that you're going to get. You know, people don't think about this, but gutters are a huge benefit.
And downspouts, so they get jammed packed full of leaves.
I mean, you know, like the better your gutters and the better your downspouts are, and keeping those things clean, the better for your home and its foundation. I just recently bought some acreage property, and overall I have a slight slope to my property. It handles water really, really well. I do have one area that I've realized it pulls some water, and that's okay. You just learn how to deal with your property, or you realize that you're going to have some drainage. But guess what? I bought during the summer, so I didn't know where that was going to happen. You know, and I've lived on properties where it seemed fantastic, and then all of a sudden we get this atmospheric river, and you are, you know, you've got 10 inches of standing water, and your outbuildings are flooding. So it's really important to truly understand how a home deals with its water.
And the best way is in winter.
It really is. I mean, you just can't, you know, it's during the summer, you're going to see evidence maybe of something, but you're not going to truly know how that all plays out. So as much as it's not fun to be getting in and out of cars, in and out of homes when you're all bundled up and you've got boots on, it is actually one of the best times here in the Northwest. And you know, roof leaks are the other thing, is like sometimes people just don't realize, or maybe they're not in that further home, or it hasn't started yet, but like roof leaks are fantastic. You know, like you're not going to see that roof leak in the summer. So don't shy away from buying a home in the Northwest during the winter.
Even when a lot of people are shying away. And we'll talk about that next. So another reason to buy, or it's a great time to buy during the winter months, especially because a lot of people only want to buy when it's spring and sunny and the weather changes. But again, if you're somebody who's sensitive to daylight or lighting in a house, let me tell you, the best time to see a house is in the winter, because one house might have a darkish feeling during the spring or summer, but it could be really dark during the winter months. And I don't know about you, but I remember one house I owned a few years back. It was so dark in general because the ceilings were a little bit lower, and the way it faced, you know, the sun or lack thereof. And during the winter months, it literally felt like a cave. Well, and it made me feel a certain way.
Let's be honest. I mean, we have a lot of dark, gloomy months potentially. I mean, you know, it starts in probably like November, December, and we go all the way through, you know, March sometimes. And that's a long time.
Or further. Sometimes it can go to like May or June.
I mean, but that is a serious concern, is that we have, you know, a lot of people who are seriously affected by the gray, overcast days that we tend to have here. And so if your home feels, I don't want to say oppressive, but oppressive because it's so dark and gloomy, that is something to think about. You know, I've also lived in homes where, you know, you're inside the home and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so dark. And you go outside and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You know, so really a good thing to take into account is like, what is it going to be like at its worst? Definitely, you know, you don't want to see it. You don't want to see it at its best. You want to see it at its worst. And that is buying in winter. I mean, I would actually say, like, we just came out of our, you know, like the 12 shortest, or the 8 weeks that are the shortest days and the darkest. And that is really the best time to buy, is because you're going to see that home at its truly worst.
Well, and we just had a buyer recently who they saw the house on a lighter day, on a sunny day, and they came back to see it again for a second showing, because while they liked it, they wanted to see it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which 4 o'clock here in the winter months feels dark. And they just wanted to feel the house. Like, is this going to be light enough for us? Because sometimes it is good to see houses in different timelines, because there are days where 12 o'clock noon feels like 4 o'clock, or because it's so overcast, the clouds sit so low. But if you are somebody with any kind of sensitivity to light, and you know that it's going to be a struggle for you here in Portland with the gloominess and all that. And then it is important to assess the lighting of the house that you're going to buy and maybe how to add more to it. I mean, we have some houses that have the solar tubes,
Yep,
and those are a fantastic thing to do for houses, especially older homes where they just didn't have a lot of windows or skylights, or just adding more lamps and lights and things like that. It's not always a deal killer. It just means you have to be aware of the type of house you're buying and maybe adding light, which is, you know, something that for the right house, you can do it. And another reason why it's such a great idea to buy in the winter months is more motivated sellers. So let's think about this. Most sellers want to put their house on the market in what time frame? Spring! Because they come out of the holidays in January, they're putting away Christmas still, they're trying to get all these projects done, and they always tell us, we want our yard to look so good. When all these plants and shrubs and flowers bloom, our yard looks so good. Our house looks better. Everybody feels better. And when you look at statistically the Portland real estate market, our highest number of home sale closings always happen in the April, May timeframe because buyers show up in February, March, and April and close out in April, May. So a lot of sellers kind of go by that logic. Now, it doesn't mean that sellers aren't putting their houses on the market all times of the year. They most certainly do. But think about it. Let's say you're a seller and you're getting towards October, November, and you're putting your house on the market. That means you need to sell it. And you're typically sitting for a little bit longer, depending on what's happening in the market. And the holidays, usually they're foregoing, decorating for the holidays in order to make sure their house looks a certain way. So we find a lot of sellers want to get off the books, so to speak, or sell before, during the winter months. If they're putting their house on the market during that time, they're typically serious. Needing to sell. And there are some companies in our area that incentivize sellers to relocate before the end of the year, and they're offering, incentives to the seller to sell sooner than later. So at the end of the day, we tend to find the people that are selling during the winter months are the most motivated. They need to sell. So it's a great time to consider being a buyer in the winter months for that reason.
Oh, 100%. And I think, this is a great time to, I don't want to say get some deals, but get some deals. You might be able to get the closing costs. You might be able to negotiate price down or get more repairs because they're ready to be done. I hear it all the time where sellers, they want to get their Christmas decorations out or they want to be able to enjoy the holidays. And so getting under contract and through that process is very important to them. Plus, usually they're ready to move on. If they're selling in the winter, they're moving on to something else and they want to get to that next step.
And another good point is new construction. So these builders, especially if they're national builders, they have the incentive to close out these homes and get them off their books financially. So we oftentimes find, and we did find that at the end of last year, is they make more deals. They're more negotiable. They offer more incentives. They are absolutely motivated to get their books a certain way. So with new construction, it's a great thing too. It's not just resale properties.
Deals all over the place.
Hey, thanks for watching all the reasons why it's a great time to buy in the winter months right here in the Portland area. We know your timing is your timing, whether it's winter, fall, spring, summer, doesn't matter. Give us a call. All of our contact information is in the description below, and we'd love to hop on a Zoom call with you and get your journey started in making a move to the great city here of Portland, Oregon.